WWE is planning a big return, plus so much more. We're going to talk about it right here on the Ango Show. Yes. Welcome back to TAS. Don't forget, we got a big giveaway at 100K, so make sure you click subscribe for a chance to win. We're going to kick things off with NXT Carmen Petrovich. Yeah, guys, you might have seen her a little bit here and there on NXT. Not really the biggest name in NXT. Not really been given major storylines within NXT, but we're finally starting to see Carmen Petrovich on TV. And now what's really interesting is on Instagram, she's actually teasing a Royal Rumble appearance. And this got me thinking a little bit about the Royal Rumble and what WWE can do a little bit differently this year. And I'm going to be very adamant and very clear because I think it needs to be said, WWE needs to focus on the future of the business. Now, with the Women's Royal Rumble, every year we see plenty of the legends come back, and that's always fantastic, and I'm glad to see that. And throughout the last few years, we have got a little bit of involvement from NXT stars in the Royal Rumble. But I think WWE has to really build towards the future of this company, and the Royal Rumble match is one of the biggest match types where it is possible to do this. Now, I'm not saying WWE shouldn't bring in legends for the Royal Rumble matches, but having NXT stars more involved in the Royal Rumble match would be very significant. Now, I am not saying this applies to Carmen Petrovich, but I am saying it wouldn't be a bad idea for an NXT star to make it to the bottom four, the final three, the final two. If an NXT star can get that far, I think it sets a lot of eyes on NXT and it tells the audience, hey, you should be watching this person. We believe in this person. This person will be a big deal in the near future. And I think that should apply to both the Women's Royal Rumble and the Men's Royal Rumble. And I think it would be a great idea because not only does it help NXT, but it also helps WWE in the sense that they are trying to push the future. And it's not just, hey, you go watch NXT and see it for yourself. It's, hey, we're putting these people out there. I think this is actually pretty reasonable too, considering the fact that WWE has been putting NXT stars on its main roster shows as of late. Carmelo Hayes has benefited greatly from that, but when you do it at the Royal Rumble, it's one of the big four. I think it sets the right expectations, and it makes for really good content too when you have an NXT star that can make it really far because it makes it a little bit unpredictable. And the one thing that WWE has been doing this year in terms of the Royal Rumble build, they're making it unpredictable, which I genuinely appreciate because I feel like Royal Rumble for a long time has kind of got stale and kind of got boring. And, you know, that's not always the most popular opinion, but the reality is I think, the last few years we haven't seen too many major surprises. This year, it seems like a lot of stories are being built to the Royal Rumble. A lot of wrestlers want to win the Royal Rumble and finish their own story. Why not create a new story for an NXT star? So whether it's Carmen Petrovich or, Lyra Valkyria, whoever it may be, I want to see more of this happen, and hopefully it does. I want to turn our attention to Seth Rollins. Unfortunately, there is some unfortunate news for Seth Rollins. Because it appears that Seth Rollins is injured. Multiple sources have chimed in on this, but Seth Rollins working Jinder Mahal yesterday. PW Torch originally reported that Rollins sustained a left leg injury late in the match, possibly during a dive to the outside. What's really interesting is Seth Rollins finished the match, but you can actually tell this wasn't a kayfabe injury because Jinder Mahal was actually not working his left leg. So that is something I noticed while watching the show. We talked a little bit about this on the Raw post show, but this is a very, very shitty situation because obviously we talk about this a lot, very often on the channel. Injuries are part of the game, but we don't want to see people get injured, especially Seth Rollins being a world heavyweight champion at this point, man. Like, we don't want WrestleMania to be screwed because of injuries. And obviously for Seth Rollins, I think that it's arguably the biggest match of his career. It's one of the biggest matches WWE can do with Seth Rollins versus CM Punk headlining WrestleMania Night 1. There's no word on whether or not this injury is going to cause issues for WWE. The expectation is that Seth Rollins will get an MRI either today, tomorrow, or Thursday. But at the same time, too, it is something to pay attention to because if Seth Rollins cannot compete, then WWE could very well be in a situation where either Seth Rollins has to vacate the belt or WWE has to figure something else out. And it's a very unfortunate situation, and it could mess with WrestleMania plans. But most importantly, whenever we see injuries, if you watch this channel, injuries, health, it always comes before everything else. These are real human beings going through real injuries. So with Seth Rollins, obviously, best of luck to Seth, and hopefully this is nothing crazy. Hopefully this is nothing at all. But if it is something, hopefully it's very minor and he'll be back soon. Because, first of all, I like what Seth Rollins is doing as World Heavyweight Champion, and it's time for WWE, in my opinion, to freshen things up in terms of dropping the belt. And there's a lot of great talent ready to step up. That's the beautiful part of this. WWE has a lot of people who want the World Championship. It's been told as stories on television. So it's not an issue for WWE to find the next person to hold the belt. They have their options, but obviously it would be a lot better if Seth doesn't have to vacate it. Seth is cleared and he's ready to go and he could actually defend his belt. But of course, WWE doesn't have to rush. They have another week or so until the Royal Rumble, and I think we'll get our answers a lot sooner than that as well. It is interesting, by the way, WWE hasn't announced a Seth Rollins match for the Royal Rumble, so that is something to keep in mind. And, if Seth Rollins isn't cleared and won't be cleared, if he's out for a long time, maybe you make this Royal Rumble match for the World Heavyweight Championship belt. Maybe that's what you do instead. I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see how things go about this, but this is definitely a story to pay attention to because it could have a lot of implications on the future of WWE television. And speaking of big news, guys, yes, I love this. I'm super excited about this. It was noted on the Wrestling Observer Radio that the presumption is that Brock Lesnar could return as early as next week. Not been confirmed, but it looks like he could very well be in the Royal Rumble match. Guys, I think this is very obvious of what I'm going to talk about. Gunther, Brock Lesnar, they've planted the seed before. Me and Billy were talking about this on the Raw post show. Everything that happens on WWE has a purpose. Triple H thinks long term, and I think this is what they do with Gunther and Brock Lesnar. I think they set this match up at the Royal Rumble. And I am all in on this idea. If Brock Lesnar returns to the Royal Rumble or before the Royal Rumble, whatever it may be, I don't care how they do it. Him and Gunther got to go forward with this match. To me, this is a very big match. And quite honestly, for Gunther, I would consider this a dream match. And I would be very interested to see how Brock Lesnar competes against Gunther. We could talk all day about WWE and AEW and Impact and all these other companies, right? There's a lot of great wrestling companies out there. A lot of great things are happening in wrestling. But WWE has created Gunther to be one of the guys in the company. And I think a lot of people look at what he's doing on television as something that is very good and very significant. You put him in the ring with Brock Lesnar, Intercontinental Championship. Do you have Brock Lesnar defeat Gunther? And honestly, I trust Triple H in the sense that Brock Lesnar would actually lose, which is very interesting because it's not very often we see Brock Lesnar lose. But obviously, Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble set it up with Gunther. That's a massive singles match for WrestleMania 40, and that is one I'm super excited about.